Hi, welcome to Glenohumeral Gurus, a podcast for clinicians with an interest in shoulder pathology. I'm your host, Margie Olds, and it's a pleasure for me to bring you these podcasts. The aim for the podcast is to deliver some clinically relevant content for you, and we aim to take around 15 to 20 minutes. I plan to interview people from all over the globe and talk to clinicians and researchers and anybody with an interest in shoulder pathology so that we can learn how to help these people better. So settle in and enjoy the podcast. Hey Ben, welcome to Glenohumeral Gurus. It's really exciting to have you here as our first guest. Exciting to connect with you and meet with you again this morning.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. I was excited to have this chat with you and just hear what's going on. Firstly, I wanted to say, how did you get to this place? Do you want to share with us a little bit about your physio career and how you got to be on a podcast with me about force plates and stuff? How has that happened for you?
Well, I guess it probably started back in the day when I did my undergraduate degree at UniSA and I finished in '09. Then I went out and did my postgrad at UniSA as well in sports and exercise and MSK physio. So that finished in 2012. So now I've been practicing obviously since '09 for probably 15 years now. I've always worked with the sport of baseball. So that sort of slowly piqued my interest in playing around with force plates, and it was getting some attention probably 5 or so years ago with Ben Ashworth, sort of stuff that he was doing. And then, I just kept playing around with them, tried to keep learning new things, and that sort of led me to reaching out to you, I guess. And then it was fate that brought us together, Margie, and now we're here. So I'm having a chat with you about some of the stuff that I like chatting about. So
yeah, exactly.
Yes, that's my sort of short story.
Yeah, no, and just so everyone's aware, we did a joint workshop on instability earlier this year, didn't we, Ben? In Adelaide.
It was end of March because the little man just came in April. So,
yes, that's right.
Early March, and he just came after that, so early March. So
yes, and he did try to share and join in our podcast this morning, didn't he?
He tried to. He tried to interrupt, and we finally got here. So.
Yeah, great. Do you want to tell me, I don't know much about your involvement with baseball. Do you want to tell me about that? We never really chatted about that.
No, I haven't. So as a kid, I've always played the sort of junior state and a bit of national level too. So when I sort of finished my year 12, so my final year of high school, I had to kind of either go down the road of trying to think about going to college and play, or I chose the physio route because I think I trusted my academic brain rather than my body. And then that sort of led me to obviously being a physio. And then when I sort of graduated, I started working with our state team, the Adelaide Giants, who are now the Adelaide Giants, in our national team. And I'm still with them today. So that's been a long journey so far. And that's also led me to working within our national teams for some of the junior and a few little senior teams here and there. So there's a few of us in Australia that have the opportunity to work with those teams, and they sort of share it around a bit. I guess I've been fortunate because some of those guys that were the coaches were my coaches when I was a player. So I guess there was a bit of a relationship, and that sort of helped me get my foot in the door. Obviously having your masters is a bit of a prerequisite and all that kind of stuff. So, but I was probably right place, right time. And then, you just keep working on it and having fun, and then trying to work out how you sort of, I guess, get better as a physio to kind of make sure you manage those players properly. That's what sort of led me to do my masters and want to piqued my interest in shoulders, because to be honest, I hated shoulders as an undergrad. It was the most scariest thing I reckon I could have treated. Now it's all I treat and it's all I care about. So what a big a flip, I guess, if you want to call it that. So big 360 on that. So
I think my journey in that space was very similar. You look back at all the things you used to do as a new grad for shoulders and how much we've learned through that journey. I think it's the fascination with it.
Yep.
Yeah, can you share with me then about the force plates and how you use them in clinical practice? How do you think they're relevant for people, I guess particularly baseball, but also other people? How should therapists be using them? What do you think?
Yeah, well, look, funny you asked me that. I just wrote a blog for Hawk and Dynamics on these things, so they're getting released as we go. They've just released the second of the 3 sort of series. So obviously, look, I think for me, force plates are still a performance outcome sort of assessment. So it's not necessarily going to tell us anything about injury prediction, which I think hopefully that's the next little thing that some of these people in the research world are looking at. But yeah, I like using it for that long lever strength, especially for my baseball guys in these kind of T and Y positions, my throwing athletes, my contact athletes,
Yeah.
just to get a bit of a gauge on their sort of power and their rate of force development. So I think, as we know, a lot of people get their range and strength back, but power is the next thing. That's kind of the next expression of strength, I guess, that we can start measuring now. So
Yeah.
that's where I think we start with lots of different positions. There's the ASH test, there's push-up variations, there's mid-thigh pulls for lower body, a quick lower body or lower quarter assessments.
Yeah.
They'd be probably the go-tos for now that I like to use in the clinic for all different, rotator cuff, instability, probably not my frozen shoulder patients, but more those active kind of individuals or injured workers that need to mimic positions where they need to be strong and produce force. That's how my clinical brain uses the force plates into my clinical practice.
Yeah, well, I have a number of concerns around the reliability of rate of force development. I think it's a really important concept. But do you have any tips for clinicians around making their rate of force development assessment reliable? We haven't seen anything published in the literature, and I'm keen that to make this as reliable as we can. Do you have any tips for clinicians?
I guess my tips would be like most things, whether it's dynamometry or force plates, having your systematic approach, the way you do it, the similar kind of cues. I guess too, I've noticed even playing around with them that using an internal versus external cue has a different outcome on your RFD
Right.
sometimes. So the way that you're trying to cue your athlete will give you different results. So I think there's probably, I think the setup and the way that you try and describe the test to your patients is quite important. But I don't think I have the magic answer for that. I think I've just got my way of being systematic, and that's the best I can do from N=1 as me as the tester. So I guess that inter versus intra rate of reliability still has some work to go. So I don't know if I have the magic answer for you, Margie. I'm sorry, but
No,
that's my
that's okay.
experience
I'm
with
just
that.
really keen to hear. And in terms of the language that you use, what would you say to somebody before they what is the cues that you give people then?
I like to sort of say, I want you to push fast first and hard second. So more think about being fast first is the key.
Yes.
So, when you do your first test, I'll sort of let them just get a bit of a feel for it. We'll look at the graph. We'll see if their strength is where it should be in relation to their body weight from a normalized sort of data perspective. And then if their RFD is down, I'll work out which cue I go with next. So some of it's just push as hard and fast as you can. And some of it's, all right, now you're strong. So let's see if we can get it a bit faster. So let's push fast first, or slap your hand into the plate. They're my kind of different cues that I usually go to, depending on if I want force versus speed with their test.
That's really useful. The other thing I have, I read your blog that you'd written which is really fascinating, because I guess I'm just exploring in this space, so I think there's a lot to learn. I saw that mid-thigh pull, and I think about shoulder strength and measuring these in a really biomechanical, X, Y, Z kind of planes. And I wondered that mid-thigh pull, it's bilateral, when you do it. I'm really interested in that traction effect on the shoulder. What have you seen there?
Look, I've only been playing around with it just to purely get lower limb strength. I haven't really done it with my inferior instabilities per se. So, I probably don't have too much to add to that, to be honest, Margie. I just think I'm just looking for a raw score for, 3 to 5 times their body weight from a mid-thigh pull is pretty good for my athletic population. So that's probably one of the ones I don't do as often, because I've probably got my other battery of tests that I prefer to use first with my sort of, I guess, blinkers on the shoulder to begin with, and then I'll sort of start to look at other things that I can do from a kinetic chain. So, and the other thing is there's no real black and white correlation with the upper limb yet. I'm just starting to play around with what happens if I do this, isometric test versus some other dynamic upper body test. What are we going to see? But it's still in its infancy, to be honest with you. So
isn't it? And I thought that was a really nice idea, and I've been doing some work with some of the Kinvent apparatus, and I think you might be able to do that with a Kinvent pull to measure one arm compared to the other. So I might have a play with that myself. So that would be interesting. Do you see therapists making common mistakes in this area? Do you have any tips that you wanted to share with clinicians?
I think the obvious thing is a lot of people just will stare at the tablet when they're doing the test and will actually watch the movement,
Yeah,
variations that their patient will display doing an ASH test, for example. They'll
yeah,
try and bend their elbows to shorten that lever. They'll dump their shoulder. They'll rock the boat. They'll be swinging around, and it's just watching those cues to see, are they trying to cheat to get that long lever force production? And then if they are, then how do we then regress that in our rehab and address their trunk stability or whatever, whether it's pain, whether it's mobility that we need to think about. So I guess that also leads me into sort of thinking about what I'm expecting when I test these guys on a force plate. Am I
yeah,
early on in my rehab where I'm okay with low force and low RFD versus end stage where I want high force, high RFD? So it just depends on where that athlete is within their rehab program and their journey, I guess. So they're just some common mistakes I'll see though.
yeah, right. And you would use the outcome that you use the force plates then to monitor progress and then tailor your rehab
hmm
accordingly. Is that what I'm hearing?
hmm
So,
Yeah, so depending on if they've got some concentric deficits, some eccentric deficits, if their time to peak force is not great. So it depends if we need to, build concentric force, just build strength. If there's eccentric sort of deficits, we can target that in their rehab program with some eccentric kind of progressions or exercises. And yeah, if they're not explosive or fast, some of them haven't just done that in their rehab yet. So it might be an entry to go, look, you're not too bad. We're safe to start doing this. Let's grab some medicine balls and start throwing it. Let's do some
yeah,
plyometric push-ups. Let's start introducing some of that. And you've got the confidence that you can do that. So I think it's a nice little objective measure to give them some confidence and buy-in as well. I think people like numbers, people like to see things, people like to see things
yeah.
improve. So that's what I like about it too. It's a nice little fancy, I wouldn't say gimmick, but it's a fancy way to get them to
To
buy in.
document that change, over time.
Yeah, yep,
Yeah,
yep.
cool.
And they like looking at the graphs from first session, third session, fifth, and it's good. But I look in the clinic, I wouldn't do it every day with every patient in terms of every time I see them, but it might be your monthly check-in. Let's review this, or yep, I've sort of semi-discharged you. You're back to footy, back to rugby. Let's catch up in 6 weeks. Let's reassess your ASH test, our KPIs, and make sure you're not dropping significantly and paying a price for going back to sport. Or you might be lazy, not do your rehab because you think
Yeah,
you're back to normal, and then you kind of go, hey, we still got to work on this, mate. Don't neglect this. So that's kind of the other part of it too. So.
yeah. And gives people that check-in, doesn't it, with some really objective
hmm
measures. Yeah,
Yep.
cool. Cool. Hey, so I know you're also interested in virtual reality, VR. We've talked a little bit about that
hmm
as well. Do you want to share with me and the wider crew why you think this is important and where you think it's going? We've chatted briefly
hmm
about that. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts there?
I think definitely in that instability space, trying to replicate that fear, apprehension, anxiety. Not that we're trying to make them feel horrible when they've in the clinic and feel a bit nauseous or whatever, but I think we need to find ways to assess and reassess those things, and that might be a nice little way to put them in some uncomfortable positions that we can then retest our outcome measures or range of motion, or just trick that brain, I guess, into being in a place where they don't feel comfortable. So I like the idea of it just being able to take them out of their comfort zone in a rehab setting. So yeah, so I think I think that's the next step. As you know, you've shown me some stuff to begin with, but it sort of
Yeah.
intrigued me a bit more. Just like force plates 5 years ago, this might be the next thing I want to start obsessing over, I guess. So thanks, Margie, for that. So
Oh, you're
you
very
don't know what you've
welcome.
unleashed here.
You're very
But
welcome.
but yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think that's the next thing is because we know that those patient-reported outcome measures in terms of confidence, self-efficacy, fear avoidance, they're really important things that are going to hold that subgroup of patients back to getting back to the field or back to sport, back to work. So if we can find ways in a somewhat controlled environment that we can start gradually exposing them in that area
Yeah.
without turning into a pain science chat, but that's the reality. That's what we've got to do. So, in the clinic, I'll see a lot of those guys get their range, strength, and RFD back, but their CSE is still, hovering that 50, 60%. And a lot of it's, I just need to do more, I think, and I'll be comfortable. But
Yeah.
how can I bridge it from all or nothing to no contact to contact? And then so yeah, I think that might be a nice little segue in the middle there.
I think it provides them a sort of a safe introduction, doesn't it? At least that's been, and when
Mm,
we've
mm,
videoed them patients doing that, that's definitely been the feedback anecdotally from patients. So
mm,
yeah,
mm.
cool. Cool. Hey, great to have you join us. I wanted this just to be a little short segment for clinicians to listen to on their way to work. Do you have any other final comments you wanted to add? A shout out to anyone? I know you do your simple shoulder solutions. Do you want to share with us about that and what that involves? Or
Yeah, well, look, without rambling on for too long, so that my little app that sort of was my simple shoulder systems was I sort of created it because my colleagues, this is pre-COVID, have that treated ACLs have a lot of really good outcomes and tests and all that sort of stuff. Yet, with the shoulder, we don't really have a great I don't want to use the word recipe or algorithm, but a good battery of tests. Or you've started to develop stuff with your literature, but just trying to think what else can we do that we can have a bit of a platform to know where all our normative tests are, all the normative data, so we can kind of benchmark our patients. So that's kind of where that my little baby with that came from, which sort of led to that, to then some more presenting, some more case studies, and that's sort of my little baby where I'm trying to help clinicians get better outcomes with their shoulders, just whether you've got the fancy gadgets or not, because not all of us have force plates, not all of us have dynamometers. So what other baseline test could we do if we're the little physio in the doctor's practice out in the country with nothing but a room and a bed and a few weights, and some TheraBands, and so that's kind of where that little baby came from. And obviously I'm very lucky that at my clinic at Wakefield Sports Clinic in Adelaide, South Australia, that I've got a lot of experienced colleagues who probably helped me level up my shoulder game to where I am today. You met my one of my bosses, Ian, who's one of the smartest men going around, who knows how to baffle every presenter with a good question. So
yes, it's fabulous.
I'm just lucky that I just think I'm lucky that I'm in a good environment that pushes me to be better. And obviously in the sporting environment, so you want to be up to date. You just got it, otherwise you're going to fall behind. So, but that's my little shout out to my little app and my little sort of PD thing and work and all that sort of stuff. That's helped me get to where I am today. So
cool.
Yes, that's it. Without me rambling too much, Margie. Sorry about that.
Hey, well, I very much appreciate your time, and I appreciate your wife being able to look after Archie so that he was quiet enough to let us chat. So that's been fabulous.
He was almost going to be on my chest for this little chat. He was almost going to be a little koala baby just sitting there. So you're lucky. We would have been interrupted. I'm surprised my dog hasn't run in and tried to say hello. So it's been a busy morning. So
yeah, perfect. Well, thanks for taking some time out to join us. It's been awesome.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for today's podcast. I hope you've really enjoyed this content. You found some clinically useful tidbits, and some of the content has been thought-provoking. If you have other ideas for content for these podcasts, then please reach out to me on social media via Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or Twitter. I'm happy to get your feedback about the content, and if we can improve that in any way, or talk to researchers or clinicians who you would like, then I'm happy to do so. Don't forget, you can follow me on my social media for some more up-to-date content. You can also access me for patient-specific help. If you'd like to do that, then I also offer that service via Telehealth Worldwide. If you're looking for a shoulder brace, you can check that out via our shoulder braces on flawlessmotion.com. And if you wanted an online shoulder course, then I have a range of shoulder courses, through from an introductory shoulder course through to return to sport and a shoulder instability course. The instability course was designed to accompany the clinical concepts paper that we published in the Journal of Athletic Training. You can access these courses on margieolds.com or flawlessmotion.com. That's flawlessmotion.com. And every course comes with a complimentary question and answer session, so we can drill into your understanding of the key concepts of the course. You can also join our Facebook group, Glenohumeral Gurus, and follow along for the conversations and discussions on this page. And otherwise, I look forward to you joining us for the next podcast. Thanks for your time. Until then, stay well, take care.